Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another interview today with the Carnivore Yogi, Sarah Kleiner. Did I say that right, or is it Kleiner?
It's Kleiner, but that's okay.
I knew it. I knew it. Okay. So, Sarah, could you share with our audience a little bit of a background about you first, and then your transformation using a carnivore diet?
Yeah, I mean, I really started getting interested more in health after my daughter was born, and she was having some health issues, and it kind of sent me down like an alternative medicine rabbit hole. And so part of that for me was going vegan for a little while. Part of that was becoming a yoga teacher, which those two things kind of coincided. And so I did that for about 2.5 years and saw that my health actually got tremendously worse. At first, it was like oh, this is great. I feel good, kind of a detox type of thing. But then over a 2.5 year period, I started having more and more issues, dental issues, injuries that wouldn't heal, just way too skinny, couldn't keep weight on, which has never been a problem my entire life. But, one of my yoga teachers kind of took me to the side and was like, you really need to eat some animal foods because you really don't look healthy. And you're not going to be able to continue teaching. You're not going to be able to continue doing everything if you don't eat some animal foods. And so I felt really good that, a yoga teacher who'd been teaching for over 20 years, who I really respected, had that conversation with me. He's like, nonviolence starts with yourself. I know you're trying to do nonviolence to animals, but nonviolence actually starts with yourself. And if you're nutrient deficient and you're sick all the time, that's violence to yourself. And so I think a lot of people kind of get it twisted with the whole nonviolence or ahimsa aspect of yoga. So I did start eating some animal foods at that time. I was scared. I just started with like chicken and egg whites, but even that was enough to start helping me feel better. And then fast forward a few years later, I think just stress of life, my daughter does have special needs. And so kind of raising her and all the stress of that, and just I was more of like a paleo style diet, but I would still eat, chocolate and things that I wanted to eat when I wanted them. And still, find myself like, oh, not feeling well. And so I kind of got to the end of my rope around 2019. And I started again, having a lot of joint pain, inflammation. My IBS was really horrible. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong because I was trying to eat like a lot of plants and just like a little bit of meat. I was told, all the functional medicine doctors, everybody I was following said that was like the healthiest diet. And so that's what I was really trying to do. And my gut issues kept getting worse and worse. The more plants I ate, the worse they got. My joint pain kept getting worse. I was eating a lot of nuts and seeds, and I just couldn't figure it out. And so a friend of mine who is a functional medicine doctor, actually, she said, I could run labs on you and do all this stuff, but I think you should just try carnivore. I've been doing it for 5 months, and I think it would help alleviate a lot of the issues that you have. And that's Dr. Rimka. She's a good friend of mine and has been for years. And so I was like, that's insane, but why not? So I decided I'd give it a 30-day whirl. And at the end of the 30 days, I literally felt so much better. Like all the issues I was having were gone. Stomach pain gone, bloating, gas, all that was gone. Joint pain was gone. I was back to yoga, practicing the way that I wanted to. And so I just decided to kind of just stay with it. And so I did just very, very strict carnivore for 2 years. And then over the last year, I've kind of played around just to see if my gut is healthy, to add some foods back in, just to try out some different things. And then I kind of oscillate, between every now and then having maybe a little plant here and there, avocado, olives, the low anti-nutrient plants. And then just usually winter, like all winter, I really did strict carnivore just because it's just more ancestrally appropriate, easy. And so that's pretty much my carnivore story in a nutshell.
So of the low anti-nutrient plant foods, this is important. And I think most of my audience probably is aware of that, but just to remind everybody, not all plants are equally inflammatory or
Right.
equally problematic for everybody, right? You
Right.
have things like the nightshade family of vegetables, like the tomatoes, eggplants. I mean, those are probably the worst. Grains, nuts, and seeds, also a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, lectins. But then on the lower end of it, like you mentioned, avocados and olives rank
Yeah.
pretty low, right? I would say lettuce as
Yeah.
well, and radishes, right? Do you have any other ideas of what we can add to those though?
Well, I do. I try to see what's in season here. I'm really big with working with a local farmer. We have lettuce right now. So we've got this beautiful butter lettuce that's really nice to make like wraps, like chicken wraps with, things like that. I've been really enjoying doing things like that for lunch. It's just kind of nice to spice it up a little bit. Asparagus is in season, so that's one you can add. That's pretty low anti-nutrient, but I'm just a big believer, I don't think people should be eating fruit year round. I know that's kind of a trend that's been going around. I know avocado is a fruit and olive is a fruit. Olives are a little bit more of that kind of gray area. Avocado, I usually eat more of those like in the summertime when it would be a little more appropriate for those to be available. I don't really eat those a lot in the winter, but I just do think it's important that you kind of research what is in season and available in your area when you're going to add foods in. And then also the nutrient content is important as well, as far as the anti-nutrients go. And everyone's different. I mean, some people can't handle like salicylates. They can't handle oxalates. Some people actually do just fine with those foods. So I think sometimes we get into this, like, this food is bad, this food is good, when everyone really can have different sensitivities based on their genetics, based on their latitude. There's so many different factors that come at play. We all didn't have the same mom. We all didn't, we don't all have the same genetics. And so it's generalizing, I think, can be a dangerous thing in the carnivore world for sure.
Yeah, and being dogmatic about it, because we
Yeah.
criticize other sects, if you want, because
Mhm.
they tend to exhibit those kinds of very strong opinions about food. And at the end of the day, we have to remember it's just food,
Right.
And
Exactly.
there might be new studies that come out that completely revamp what we thought we ate and this whole, evolution. And, so we kind of have to relax a little bit and do what we think is best. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's not your identity. It's not who you are.
Right. And that's a big thing. I mean, I have my YouTube channel. I have had it for a few years now. And if I have a guest on, I had a guest on last week that, he basically healed his own cancer with a high fat carnivore diet. He was in hospice care,
Can
but
you share his
now
name?
Dr. Al Danenberg, and I know he'd love to talk with you. He loves to talk. He loves to share. He really
Oh,
does.
yes. I'll definitely ask you at the end to give me, all the
I'll
details.
send you his email. He's a
I
wonderful
will.
guy, and
Okay.
he just loves to share with people and help them. So he's just such a kind person. But I had a lot of people kind of, because now he thinks that metabolic flexibility is important for a strong immune system. I don't know that that's going to work for a lot of people, especially if they have issues with, food addiction, things like that. I think that has to be worked through. But
Yeah.
that's kind of, he's changed his mind a little bit on that. And he says he's mostly eating organ meats and, carnivore foods, bone marrow, the high fat, or ancestral foods. But one day a week, he'll have, some healthy carbohydrates because he thinks metabolic flexibility is important now. And I'm like, okay, that's the conclusion he's come to for himself and the research he's done. But people just get this this kind of cognitive dissonance.
Mm,
And they're like, oh, now I don't trust anything he says. And people just get triggered and they get mad. And I'm like, just, you know what? He's come to this conclusion. He's a doctor. He's done a lot of his own research. And he was at one point in hospice care about to die. And he's been able to transform his life. So
yeah.
getting triggered and getting upset by him saying, now this is something I do one day a week is just,
Yeah.
it's silly. You can't listen to the
Yeah.
overall positive message because of that. So,
Yeah.
people do get so wrapped up in letting a diet be their complete identity that I do think it's unhealthy. I think it can be harmful.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because it basically assumes also if we get upset at people changing their minds, we're assuming that they're not growing. We're assuming that they're
Right.
fixed. You know, you can't, if you're constantly trying new things and exposing yourself to new ideas, by default, you're going to have different views at different points in time, right? And so
Yeah.
for me, I know that I will probably always change my views. I have overall though been consistent. Like I started with keto and then, well, paleo and then keto and then carnivore.
Mhm.
So I guess it was all steps pointing in pretty much the same vein, but it has shifted a lot over the past decade or more, you know?
Oh, definitely. If we're not, if we hear new information, if we learn new information and we're just going to be stuck in our like, well, this is my way and this is how I've decided I'm going to be and this has become my identity, then you're not going to grow as a person, period. Like if you are unable to listen to new information. And mine has really been learning about circadian rhythms and how our body is really tied and in tune with nature and really understanding that nuance. Carbs are not appropriate in the winter. We don't have them. They don't grow. It is a mismatch circadian wise for the body. And so, yeah, I think that a strict carnivore diet in the winter, absolutely very appropriate. But
Yeah.
if someone did want to eat fruit or something like that, if it's growing in your area in the summer, do it in the middle of the day when the sun's out. Sure, go for it. If you're not going to overeat it and it's not going to cause, if you're metabolically healthy,
Yeah.
if you're metabolically unhealthy, maybe not. But if you're metabolically healthy, it's growing where you live, you're outdoors, cool. That's how nature intended us to be. But eating fruit year round and all that stuff year round is just not, it
Yeah.
doesn't work with our circadian rhythms. It really doesn't.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. So maybe you can explain a little bit more how that ties into being able to eat certain carbohydrates at different points in time. And because I know you have a lot of content on that. So obviously I will link all of your details at the end so people can check that out. But like in a nutshell, what's like the main idea here?
Well, I mean, the main idea again is like assess your metabolic health. I have a video coming out at some point this week that's going to talk about 6 signs of, 6 tests you can do to assess your metabolic health. So like, waist circumference under a certain point, blood pressure, A1C, fasting glucose, triglycerides, HDL, all of those things need to be in a good, healthy range before we even have this conversation of you maybe trying to add some carbs in the summer, right? So I always want to, because people don't understand that nuance, and I don't want someone who is metabolically unhealthy, in those regards to try this. I don't know that it's necessarily a good idea. I think those people are going to do better to get themselves metabolically healthy, stabilize, and then if they want to try this type of thing, sure, go for it. But really, like I was saying, we run on a year-long cycle. We run on a 24-hour day. Like our bodies are very tied into nature. And yes, more of a carnivore diet is going to be appropriate because in the winter, because nothing is growing in the winter, right? In most people's latitudes. In here where I am in Georgia, there's no carbs that are there's no fruit growing on trees here unless it's being done in a greenhouse and it's artificial. People can engineer and do all kinds of things. So that's also a bit of nuance there too. So make sure, again, it's appropriate in season where you live, right? In the summer, I'm here in Georgia, we get tons of peaches and apples, and we have all of those things, and those can be organically grown, sustainably grown, and they are in season at different times. Like right now, asparagus is in season. So if someone wanted to have something like that, you want to make sure it's in season, local, right? Don't just go to the grocery store and get some GMO, huge, beautiful, shiny, waxed up, pesticide covered apple. That's not advisable, right? Try to work local with someone who you see how they grow things and you trust them. And then you could, if you're again metabolically healthy, if it's in season, I always say eat it in the middle of the day under the sun, because the sun, that UVB light does deplete glycogen from the liver. And so, yeah, you want to do it in the daytime. You don't want to do it before bed. You don't want to be sitting in front of your TV eating fruit at night. That's not a good idea. You don't want to be eating anything in front of your TV at night, actually. But yeah, that's the way to do it if you're going to do it. And you still need the majority of your diet, I believe, to be meat, to be eggs, to be animal foods, butter, fat. I think that those things still should make up, if anyone is going to try these things, like 80% of the diet still needs to be that, because that's going to give us all the nutrients that we need. You're not going to get nutrients from a peach like you are going to get from eating steak and organs and fat and eggs. Like, it's different nutrition. It's more of just like, it's summertime, it's hot, it's, UV light is out. Okay, it's ancestrally appropriate if that's what you want to do. But does everyone need to do it to be healthy? No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Those are additional tools that we can use at our disposal to move the needle further to where we want it to be. And some of us are going to be more sensitive also to those foods, right, compared to somebody else. I mean, there are people who will literally eat plants all their lives and not suffer drastically, like in a major way. And I get asked all the time, like, what about healthy vegans that have been doing it for a very long time? And so there will always be somebody who, because of genetics, because of their supplementation, because of so many reasons, that they can do something that the vast majority of the population cannot tolerate in the same fashion. And we have to always remember that.
Yeah, they're outliers. They're they're the exception. They're not the rule. I can maybe count on one hand of all the years of people that I've known, people who are vegan, who are, number one, still vegan. They haven't quit because they got sick. And number two, that they're actually healthy. Like, that's maybe on one hand, I can count the people that I know of, like, all the people I've met in my entire life. It is the exception. It is not the rule. And there are a lot of people that have broken detox pathways. So if they have oxalates, if they have these anti-nutrients, if they eat nuts and seeds, they cannot properly detox the harmful parts of those plants. And so everyone needs to understand their own body and how their own body works. For me, I know if I eat nuts, even though they're keto, I will get pain in my joints. I mean, it happens within a few days quickly. It's like, oh, I know I had some almonds. Okay, my knees hurt. And that was before I even went carnivore. That was happening. I was having ankle problems and knee problems because I was eating for a snack at night, rice cake with almond butter on it. And it wasn't until I took that out that I was like, oh my gosh, my knees don't hurt. My ankle doesn't hurt. And so, I'm just somebody who can't tolerate those foods for whatever reason. Maybe it's detox pathway in the body, maybe it's gut bacteria, but it's easier to just leave it alone for me.
Yeah. And then there's also whether or not you absorb those anti-nutrients into the system, right? Because we all, whether you were breastfed or not, whether it was a cesarean or a vaginal delivery that you were born with, I mean, all those things affect the lining of your gut, and that mucosal layer that protects you and kind of fends off the lectins and other anti-nutrients from being absorbed. And so we have to remember all those things. At the end of the day, they add up and they determine how sensitive or resilient you are going to be for or against, those kinds of foods in your diet. So.
Yeah. And as we get older too, we're a lot more sensitive, because I think a lot of people come to carnivore after 35, and when we get over 35, we start to make less stomach acid naturally. We start to have less enzymatic function, so less enzymes to actually digest our food. So I think, a lot of people that come to carnivore, sometimes they can even benefit from doing a little bit of supplementation for a little bit, not permanently. I don't think anyone should do anything permanently, but sometimes they need a little support because their body is simply not used to eating that much meat and that much fat, and it is not able to digest it properly. And so, and they are having nutrient absorption issues, right? So they're not getting all the nutrients from the meat because they have low enzymatic function or low stomach acid. So that's another thing, you know, some people are fine. The younger you are, the easier you're going to have of a time to adapt. You know, people in their 20s, much different than someone in their 40s, you know, and I don't think that gets talked about enough as well in this kind of community. It's just like, just try it, it's fine, you know, but people are kind of comparing themselves to people in their 20s. And I'm like, yeah, they eventually adapted just fine because they're in their 20s, you know?
True.
Yeah.
If I eat what I used to eat back in my 20s, I mean, I'd be a mess because it was rice and beans I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
It was plant-based. And that's another thing. We all come to carnivore from a plant-based past, really. I mean, some of us were vegan. I was never vegan, but I was very close to being a very, very vegetarian, you know?
Yeah.
Other than a little bit of meat and a little bit of chicken, it was all tabbouleh, salads, hummus. You know, I grew up in Lebanon, so it was all Mediterranean foods, rice and beans every single day. So it was very plant-based, like semi-vegetarian, definitely is what you could say I was.
Yeah.
So, and you were vegan. And I mean, most of us came from that past.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what we're told, like, is that eating the most variety of plants is going to be the healthiest for you. And like I was saying earlier with if you want to have the peach in the summer, have the peach, but it's not for nutrient purposes. The nutrient purposes, you're getting that from your meat, your eggs, your organs, you know, your fats, your butter, all of those things. That's where you're going to get your nutrients from, your seafood, wild seafood. It's not from the peach. It's not from the spinach. It's not from the asparagus. It's not, that is more just like, I'd like a little some variety, you know, like, it's not really for getting your nutrients. And I think that we've been kind of brainwashed the wrong way of eat the rainbow and fill your plates up with as much plants as you can. And then you're like, well, why do I feel so terrible? And you know, why is this not working? Yeah.
Bloated. I was constipated and bloated all the time. I mean, it was awful. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned something on your Instagram story the other day about possibly changing your handle, your Instagram handle, away from Carnivore Yogi. And can you tell us where you're at right now with that, and why was this an issue to begin with?
I'm just really kind of torn about it, to be honest with you. Like I said, the dogmatic carnivore people are very, like, between the dogmatic carnivore people and then the yoga people who come after me and attack me. That's why I'm just kind of over
yoga
it.
People, wait a second. Now this
gosh, that's worse than the dogmatic carnivores.
Attacking you. Wow.
Oh yeah, that's been happening since day one. I mean,
that's so ironic.
Some of the most nasty messages I get are from, like, quote unquote yogis that are like telling me I'm a disgusting person, I'm a disgrace, that I don't understand yoga, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I have been teaching for 12 years. I've been to Bali. I have studied with some of the masters. Like, I understand yoga quite well. And actually it's you that doesn't understand yoga, because meat was used as medicine in Ayurveda. Like, meat is medicinal. Yoga in the Vedas, that milk and honey is the food of the gods. Like, these are not vegan foods that are being used to help people. And so this whole, like, the vegan yoga thing has just been a twisted mess. I want to get this. There's this great expert who actually, I can't remember his name right now, but he does a really good job of explaining how religion got really weaved into yoga, it got weaved into how they're supposed to eat, and how it's mostly just BS, essentially, and how it's mostly people trying to control other people and make them weak so they can't fight, right? If you can't have meat, you can't fight back. And so there's a lot of history there that people that just are, you know, yoga is vegan, vegetarian. No, it's actually not. You actually don't have to do those things. So it's, those are the people that attack me the most. And then I do get really tired of some of the crazy dogmatic carnivore people, honestly. They're, believe it or not as bad as the yoga people. So some days I just wake up and I'm like, I don't want to deal with these comments anymore. I don't want to deal with these people anymore. And so I just want to change my name to Circadian Sarah is what I was thinking, because I'm more aligned with a lot of circadian biology now. And I feel like you can weave in the food piece very easily.
Right.
No problem. It's like more about ancestral eating. Yeah, so that's kind of my thinking with that. But the reason I keep the name is that I do want to still help people that need carnivore, that could really benefit from doing it. Maybe not for long term, but even just they're suffering with a lot of the same issues that I was suffering with. Maybe they have crippling depression or anxiety. Maybe they've got joint pain or, I still get those messages daily too. I got one this morning of this woman who showed me like a side by side of her face, and it was like all swollen. And then she had done carnivore for a month and it was like beautiful, no swelling. And she was just like, I'm so happy. I feel so good. Thank you for sharing what you do. And so that's kind of what keeps me from not changing the name. I'm like torn because I get a lot of hatred and like negativity from the name, but also I can reach people and still help people with the name, so that's.
And you are carnivore. I mean, having fruit and having plant foods at the end of the day still qualifies, because like the scientific term is a hypercarnivore diet. Humans eat a hypercarnivore diet, which means 70% of our food from animal sources. And that's just 70%, which means the rest can come from plant foods. That's fine.
Right.
So it's still on point, technically.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah. And people just like you were talking about earlier, they like to have a label. They like to be certain. And unfortunately, if we're talking about people, there is no certainty. Everyone's different. Like I said, we all have different mothers. We all have different genetics. We all live in different latitudes. Someone in Costa Rica should not eat the same diet as someone in Canada, and vice versa. Like if you're in Canada and you're eating tropical fruit and you're eating like all these, papaya and coconut water and all that stuff, and you're in Canada and it's winter, are you kidding me? That's a terrible, that's a terrible circadian mismatch. Food is light. Food has light code. And so you need to be eating what's in your environment, not just what's at the grocery store. We've just really made everything way too convenient. And I feel like all these conveniences are completely detrimental to our health.
How is your diet right now, and like a general overview, and what would you recommend? How would people be best served in structuring their carnivore or animal-based diet?
Yeah. Right now, I mean, we're coming out of winter and there are a few things that are coming in season. So, I mean, every day for breakfast, I'm still big on like my breakfast casserole. So I still have like my sausage, egg, breakfast casserole that I eat pretty much every day. I make a big one on Sunday and then I just keep it in the fridge and pull it out during the week. Lunch, I have really gotten into like sardines with Primal Kitchen mayo. That's one of my favorites. For lunch, I might use, like, if it's in season, like the butter lettuce that we get from the farm, and like wrap the sardines up in the lettuce and have it as a wrap. I might not. And I will also do a lot of hard boiled eggs with the sardines too, and kind of mash those up and make like a kind of a big salad type of thing. But most of the salad is like the meat and eggs. There's not really fruit that's in season right now. Like I mentioned, asparagus just came in. So we did have last night with dinner, we had like wild cod that I baked with a little bit of asparagus. That's what the whole family ate that for dinner with like tons of butter, of course. So, and of course we still eat lots of steak. I will meal prep usually on Sundays. I'll do the breakfast casserole, do ground beef or bison, sometimes an organ meat blend, just a ton of like ground meat, and just section those off into glass containers, keep those in the fridge. And sometimes I'll just pull those out for dinner. So it's still the majority of my diet right now is carnivore. It's easier for me. It's It's more convenient. And, you know, I just kind of see what the farmer has. We get a delivery every every Friday. And I'm like, what do they have this week? Does that even look appealing? If it's kale, I'm not buying it. Um,
Right.
I
Of
don't even
course.
care if that's in season. We're not eating it.
I know. That's the
So
worst.
yeah, it is
You,
terrible.
you probably see that a lot also in the yoga community, the green
Oh God.
smoothies, right? Like walking in with it's the worst
I
thing.
used to have those every day. Like that's probably why my joints were so messed up for a while.
Of
Yeah.
course. That was the kale, the spinach, and
Yep.
then they add the almond milk, more
Yep.
oxalate, The calcium carbonate is another major problem in almond milks, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
it's like the worst form of calcium supplement that increases risk of heart disease and stroke. I mean, it's just the full thing.
Yeah, I get, and I do drink raw milk. That's one thing that's not really quote unquote carnivore. And people are like, doesn't that take you out of ketosis? And I'm like, probably, I don't really care. Like,
For sure.
my aim is not to be in ketosis all the time. I think it's good to go in and out of ketosis. And I don't
Yeah.
drink milk every day, but I do have it a few times a week.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine. But we will drink raw milk and raw cream from the farm, from a local farm. That's something that's new. I didn't do that I was like against dairy for a really long time.
Right.
But now my body can handle it just fine, and I really do enjoy it. So if you're going to drink any kind of milk, just drink like real real raw unpasteurized milk is going to be the best thing for you. Don't go for the nut milks or oatmeal milks or any of that junk. Like it's absolutely terrible for
It's
you.
the worst. I mean, just
Yeah.
look at the ingredient list. Well, what other kinds of dairy would you recommend other than raw milk?
We do raw cheese, love raw cheese, and then again the raw cream. You can make your own yogurt from the raw milk if you enjoy that. That's pretty easy to do with like an instant pot. A lot of people drink kefir. I haven't really gotten into the kefir yet, but I know a lot of people swear by it, that they have gut issues. So I'm not opposed to it at all. But it's just something I haven't started trying out yet. But yeah, that's pretty much the dairy that we do.
Okay. And so the foods that you were outlining, did we get to dinner?
Dinner, usually I will cook steak. We'll do steaks on the grill, and then maybe I'll do sides for the family. I usually don't eat a ton of sides with dinner. Like I'm still pretty much like steak and butter. If it's like last night, if it's asparagus or something like that, it's in season, yeah, I will eat that. But I'll cook every now and then, like just regular potatoes for my husband in the air fryer.
Yeah.
I don't eat those really though.
Yeah.
So yeah, dinner is usually pretty simple and plain.
Sweet potatoes, right? You said not.
No, just regular
Oh, he'll
potatoes.
have regular potatoes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Because
he's not carnivore.
no, he's not. He's not.
Yeah.
He's like, 6'4", runs every day, like super good shape. Like he's very metabolically healthy. He can eat carbs if he wants to. And he doesn't eat like junk food. He's
Yeah.
he'll eat what I cook. We eat a lot of he loves wild salmon. So I cook that a lot for the family. We do eat seafood a lot more than probably most carnivores. I would say we probably eat it 3 to 4 times a week. I do think it's important to have omega-3s in your diet to balance the omega-3 to 6 ratio. I think that's important for people, that I think that gets ignored a lot. So yeah, I mean, our meals mostly center around meat still. If there's
Yeah.
a plant, it's a condiment. It's not like we're having an asparagus casserole. It's like, here's a couple spears of asparagus to go with whatever you're having, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
would you recommend people supplement on an animal-based diet overall?
I don't think it's necessary really to do a ton of supplementation if you are getting organ meats, if you're getting, enough fat, if you're eating eggs, especially the egg yolks. And if you're eating wild seafood, I think that you don't really need a ton of supplements. The only supplement that I really do, I'm not going to go without, is my magnesium. So I do take magnesium before bed, and I think that that helps quite a bit. And I think if you're not if you have constipation or loose stools, If you're hungry all the time, you're like, I'm eating enough, but I'm still really hungry. You might want to look into supporting your digestive system with like some HCl before your meals and enzymes, just to make sure that you're extracting the nutrients from your food. And like I said, you don't need to necessarily go on those forever, but a lot of people, I mean, most people that come to carnivore have gut issues. And so they're already not absorbing their nutrients from their food. They already do have those like kind of mechanical problems with the gut. So I think that those are the two things that if there were supplements that people needed to take, possibly digestive support. And I just personally like magnesium. I do a lot of testing, like hair tissue mineral analysis. I do those like every 90 days just to make sure I need the magnesium. And I still have needed it every time I test it. So
yeah, our groundwater and our soils are so depleted
yes.
that we're just not getting enough magnesium the way our ancestors did. And it's such an important mineral.
Yeah. And I am obsessed with water. I do have, like, that's one thing we spend money on is besides our food is water. I have spring water delivered to the house in glass. All the water that I drink, I do add Quinton minerals in, which is like trace minerals. It's got like 98 different trace minerals in it. And it's amazing how much better you feel and how much more hydrated you are when you drink spring water that's not like a filtered water that's flat and depleted of minerals. Like I think people do need to be drinking mineral water that's clean. I think that that's really important as well. So that's another thing. I don't call it a supplement, but some people might.
Right.
But yeah, my water is really important too.
And you are eating organs as well every now and then. So that's also another kind of, if you want to call it supplementation, you know?
Yeah.
So would you recommend everybody take organ meats, whether in food or in supplement form?
I think that making sure you have adequate sunlight is also very important. Get your levels tested, get your nutrient levels tested. There are people, like I said, that have issues with detox. And then if you have ridiculously low vitamin D levels and you're not doing anything about it, you could possibly make your levels worse if you're pounding down organ meats. That's just my personal opinion and from a lot of the doctors and experts I've talked to. So I do believe that minding your vitamin D levels, and I don't like to take vitamin D supplements. I actually use either sunshine outdoors or I have a sun lamp that I will use like 3 days a week. Yeah, with a red light device. So
that's even better than supplementation for sure.
Yeah, and I used a sun lamp. It's a Sperity vitamin D lamp. I use it all winter with a red light device, and I only did it 3 days a week. And I just checked my levels, and they were at a 60. My vitamin D was at a 60 with no supplements.
Wow.
So
without any supplements, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What would you say to those who might be hesitant to get a vitamin D lamp, and because of like the sun damage and sun cancer or skin damage from sun exposure? What would you say to that?
Well, I actually just did a whole webinar on this last night, but it's really about practicing safe light exposure. And so if you're getting up for sunrise and you're seeing UVA, you're seeing that with bare eyes and exposing as much skin as you can, you're preconditioning your skin to be able to accept the UVB rays and absorb the vitamin D. A lot of people make the mistake of going out in the middle of the day, skipping sunrise, skipping UVA. You just go out in the middle of the day and you're like, why did I get sunburned? Well, you're wearing sunglasses. So number one, the signal from the light comes in through the eyes, right? Via the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is attached to the hypothalamus, which tells your body to create specific hormones that are like a sunscreen. So the red light that you get from sunrise and from UVA light, that red light preconditions your skin so that you can be out in UVB light. Now, you want to use an app like the D-Minder app. That's going to tell you how long to stay out. You put in your Fitzpatrick skin type. It'll tell you
how do you pronounce that? The app?
D-Minder. So the letter D and then MINDER.
Okay.
And it's a great app. It tells you when sun rises, when sunset is. You put in your skin type, it'll tell you, you know, your Fitzpatrick 1 or 2 or 3, there's like 5 different types. And then it knows your latitude. It knows, you know, where the sun is in the sky. And if you're like, I'm going out at noon, it'll say, all right, go one side for 10 minutes, it'll tell you when to flip over. And then it'll like alarm, like, get out of the sun. It's time for you to leave. So that you don't have to use like harmful sunscreens, that those have been linked to a lot of skin cancers and a lot of issues. And so, you know, I like to use nuance with sun exposure. I do the same thing with my Sperity lamp. I don't miss a sunrise, like that's a non-negotiable for me. But when I'm using the Sperity lamp, I have made sure I see sunrise and UVA, and I use a red light in conjunction with the Sperity light. Because again, red light is like a sunscreen.
Okay.
So, and you only use the Sperity for like 5 minutes per area. It's not like laying in a tanning bed for hours a day. It's a very short amount of time, and it doesn't tan you. It's not a tanning lamp.
Right.
It's just for vitamin D levels. So
I'm gonna ask you to send me the lamp so I can link it for everybody. And that's the one obviously that you would recommend.
yes, yeah, I recommend that. And I recommend using it with a red light also.
Okay.
The other thing I do that's a little weird, which might not work for everyone depending on where they live, but I open a window also when I am doing the Sperity lamp, because the signal that comes into your eyes, again, is telling your body, like, you know, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, UVB is out. These are the hormones we need to make, right? Again, if you're wearing sunglasses or you're kind of doing these lamps like in a dark room with no other lights, then your eyes are not getting that proper signal. So it's, you know, when somebody says, get a vitamin D lamp, and that's all they tell you, I'm like, that is dangerous. You have to know how to use these specific things. You only want to use a vitamin D lamp while UVB is out, like so between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Otherwise, you could disrupt your sleep. If you're using it at like 7:00 at night, your body is like, oh, it's like 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. So I'm going to stay, you know, going to make more cortisol. So all these things, like with diet, you know, the sun exposure and these things, there's nuance there for sure.
Very interesting. The great thing is that we can control those signals, and we can control our environment, from the food we're eating to the types of light that we're getting and at what times, to try as much as possible to mimic our evolution, because we evolved under those circumstances.
Yes.
And so we thrive best under those circumstances, and as close as we can get to them, the better we're going to fare.
Yeah.
So how is your exercise regimen right now?
Right now, so during winter, I did a lot more like cold therapy, ice plunging, because during winter, like, you're just not holding on to as much vitamin D because we don't have it as much. So I kind of changed things in the winter, that I was doing cold plunging, walking outdoors, and then I would do like 3 days a week of weight training. That was like 30 to 45 minutes. Now that we're transitioning more towards summer, I'll probably do more high intensity workouts I'll still use weight training. I still think weight training is vital, especially for women as we get older. I think it's really important. So I definitely weight train 3 days a week still consistently. Try to walk outdoors as much as I can. But during the summer, I'll probably kick it up a notch, maybe do like, you know, more kettlebell swings, more like high intensity type of things, because the summer is better for that. But yeah, I think movement is extremely important for the body.
I agree. And what about your yoga? You teach all the time, correct? And you still teach?
I teach one class a week. On Saturdays, I do a virtual class, and I quit teaching in studio in 2020 because the pandemic shut everything down. Before the pandemic, I was teaching like 12 or more classes a week, like all around town. It was like my full-time gig. I all the time did it. Private clients. And then the pandemic, everything shut down. And since that, they have reopened, but a lot of the studios, I just don't agree with a lot of their policies, unfortunately, here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't I don't agree with the policies that a lot of them are implementing. And so I have not gone back to teach in studio, and I just have the one virtual class per week. So
Right.
yeah, I'm not
I
as
mean,
involved.
say that again.
I'm not as involved in the
Okay.
yoga as I was previously.
And you can always do the YouTube thing as well with yoga. I mean, that's the great thing about YouTube, that you can share and be involved in the things that you are most passionate about, and you don't have to follow directions,
Yeah,
that can be a little bit draconian, as we all know too well.
exactly. Yeah, there's a couple studios that I am friends with the owner still, and I will go practice there
Hmm.
because I know their regulations are not, like you said, draconian. But as far as going back to teaching full time in studio, I'm not quite, there's not a studio I really want to do that at. So
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, I do put my classes on. I haven't been doing that in a while. I've been just keeping them for my students. But I do have a yoga YouTube channel where it's just yoga classes.
Oh, really? Okay.
I just haven't promoted it at all, because it's mostly like I have a lot of students that have been with me for 12 years, that have been with me since I've been teaching. And so a lot of them have kind of followed me from different studios. And so that's the only reason I teach that virtual class on Saturday, is for them, because it's like the same. I've been with the same students for like all these years, and they're like, can you just teach the one? And so that's why I still keep that up. And every now and then one of them will like miss the class, or like, can you record it? So I have like it's not a fancy YouTube channel, but it's just
Yeah.
like for that. Yeah.
And they probably also know about your diet and the animal-based stuff. What are their reactions when they first hear about that?
It's funny. A lot of them have like found my channel just in the last year. Most of them have no idea of any of this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of them have found my channel, and some of them have been really receptive to it. And they're like, I tried carnivore, it's been really helpful. Or some of them are like, I've just started eating a lot more meat and eggs now, and I feel so much better. And so that's been pretty cool, because like I said, a lot of them have been with my students for many years, and I haven't advertised my channel to like anybody that I know. I kind of just keep it quiet. It's just kind of weird,
I know, me too. It's so funny. It's like you put all these things out, but then on my personal
Like,
YouTube,
but
or personal Facebook, yeah, it's like, I hope they don't know.
yeah, exactly. That's yeah.
Funny.
Like, people have to find my stuff. I don't put it on my personal Facebook. I don't tell
Yeah.
friends and family. I don't go to like weddings and gatherings and be like, you've got to check out my new YouTube video. Like, I would rather not talk about it with
Me
people
too.
in my daily life. I'm like, let's just like let it be its own thing. And I still just want to be Sarah, and not
Yeah.
be connected to all of that. But like, yeah, my students have found it through just maybe searching on YouTube, or something came up in a Google search or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, all of them that still practice with me have been super receptive and like enjoying it. So I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And that's also what I think about when I try to post different kinds of content on my YouTube channel. That's not always 100% nutrition, because I'll do sometimes lifestyle or beauty tips or things like that. And you'll notice sometimes like you'll lose some subscribers because they think of you just as one thing,
One
and
thing. Yeah.
they want you to be this one person. And I feel like the people who are meant for you, like your people, will always find you, and they will always like everything you put out, and those
Yes.
are you're going to be your super fans, and so it doesn't matter if you maybe find it a little bit slower to reach your destination, as long as you stick to who you really are, because at the end of the day, I think that's the single most important thing. If you really want to influence and have an impact over the world, your authenticity and your honesty and being true to yourself, as long as you think that that's the right thing to do, that is what is going to prevail at the end. So
Yeah. It's a slippery slope sometimes. I got to be honest. It's hard because, with my YouTube channel, it grew really fast, really quickly when I first started it. And then over the last year, I've kind of shifted focus over to more circadian biology and more like quantum doctors and having these interesting conversations about light and nature and grounding. And, you know, I haven't had the same kind of growth in the last year. You know, what has made my channel grow is bringing on people to talk about carnivore. Those are the videos that blow up. Those are the videos that get views, that people like, and I get a bunch of subscribers. But,
yeah, it's
and
funny.
I think,
Me too. The collaborations.
yeah,
Always.
those are important. I think they're important and helpful, but that's not like everything of who I am. Like that's not that's it. At one point I was on fire about it, and now I'm like, it's helpful and it's good and I love it, and I want to still have this information out there for people who need it and want it, but also like I'm interested in all these other things. And that's the scary thing, is like when you put up a video and you put something out that you're excited about and it just doesn't get any attention. People are like, whatever, you know, it's like, well, why isn't this going viral? Because this is so cool. And people are like, yeah, no, we just want to hear about carnivore.
I know.
You know? So,
funny.
but I think you're right. Like your people are going to find you if you stay true to yourself. That's what I've told myself over the last year. Like I had 0 videos picked up by YouTube in an entire year, which was crazy. Like 0 videos that got over like 3,000 views, like for an entire year. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was just putting out this content of things that I was passionate about. And I just had to keep on telling myself, like, look, this information is equally as important. It's important too, and it's going to reach the right people. And those are your people. And so you have to balance that out a little bit, I think. Because yeah, when I first started the channel, it's like everything was carnivore and everything was going viral, and I was picking up all these new people. And now it's like, I want to talk about other things, and people are like, no, we just want to hear about steak.
It's so funny. It's the exact same experience. And it's like, you put out this thing you're passionate about, and you're like, yes, I want to start doing even more lifestyle, more stuff.
Yeah.
And then nobody cares, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't get good views compared to when you first started. It's just like comparatively to other things like the collaborations we do and the carnivore related stuff. There's such a big difference that you kind of like already expect to get thousands of views, you know? So it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm just at this point with my channel and everything I do. Like, I don't care if it goes viral. I just want to put out information that's helpful and that's useful to people.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult when you see other people in your same kind of niche, just like blowing up and surpassing you and all this other stuff. And you're like, well,
we're talking about Dr. Anthony Chafee, if anybody is is wondering who we're talking about. I told him, do you realize how quickly your channel has grown?
Oh yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I didn't, you know, he doesn't even realize like how quickly it's growing compared to others who will spend like a year or two, you know, to reach
building slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you got to stay true to we're given these passions inside of us. Like you're given the passion about beauty and dance and like all these other things about you, if they're in there for a reason. You know, we're not given these gifts and these passions for no reason at all. I think that we're supposed to share them. And just because it doesn't go viral, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable and that it can't help someone. And so I think that is a trap of social media, you know, it's like, oh, I could create this video and go viral. But then it's like, well, then you just attracted all these people and you have to just keep talking about that one thing that you're not even excited about anymore. So
yeah,
you can't get trapped into it.
Like you said, it is definitely a balancing act. So what I'm doing now, I'm trying to keep doing the stuff that I know is gonna, like, my audience expects, while every once in a while put out what I want to, just so that I don't like completely have a heart attack, you know, if it slows down too much. Because as your audience grows in carnivore, because I'm still passionate, obviously, I mean, this is what I eat, this is what I think is best. So, but maybe for me, it's like the same things, you know, I'm learning new things, but not at the same rate as I'm learning if I'm working on a video that's more lifestyle, more beauty, more dance, because I have to learn more things there because I haven't put in as much time, you know, working on those kinds of videos. So that's my strategy right now. keep the bulk of it in what I know is going to get views, and then slow it down just a little bit, but keep kind of like every once in a while, like, hey, I'm also interested in those things. Yeah.
I think that's a good strategy for sure. That's kind of what I try to do, is still give my viewers what they obviously have expressed that they enjoy and they like, but also expose them to different viewpoints and different people and different experts that maybe are outside of the range of their interests, because then you get the really cool messages that I've been getting a lot lately of like, thank you for doing this podcast with this doctor. I never thought about this before. And I've been implementing some of these strategies that are beyond diet, that are different than diet. Like all the stuff I've put out about light, the messages I've gotten about people changing their hygiene around light have been some of the coolest, of people transforming their health. Maybe they did carnivore and they were stuck, and it's like, make these changes with your light environment, and then they get a big health upgrade. And so those kind of messages are really cool too. So that's the other thing I have to always remind myself of, is that people can make these amazing changes and they can continue to grow and develop beyond just diet.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the near and kind of like maybe 5 years from now? Where do you see your direction overall going?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I have planned zero of what's happened in my it's all just kind of come to me. So it's hard for me to say like, this is where I want to be in 5 years, but I do really want to write a book. Like I have kind of started writing a book. So I really do want to have that out there. I would love to continue podcasting and, have my YouTube channel and just putting out information, talking to experts all over the world. I love it. It's a blast. And so I want to keep doing more of those things that I really love and enjoy, and sharing information with people. I know it's always going to be at some, about health in some regard, that I talk about. So I know that that's a thing, but as far as like, I don't know, I want to keep on sharing and meeting more people. And that's really my goal, is to keep sharing, meeting more people, and growing in that way.
Awesome. Do you feel that we missed talking about any important topic or any message that you would like to keep or you would like to leave our audience with?
I think, we covered this, but just to reiterate the importance of finding what works for your body and individually for you, and not being like, I have to subscribe to this, or have to be this, or I'm in this box, I think that's really important. And the whole thing with the adding in a fruit or seasonal, if you think that you're going to have an issue overeating these foods and they're going to cause more like binging behavior, then maybe don't tempt the bear. Know yourself in that way as well. Know there's nuance with everything. And even the people who are very certain and say it's this way, and, that's not correct. Like there's nuance with everything. So don't be afraid to find out what works better for you. And instead of worry about subscribing to a particular ideology or dogma.
Yeah. And I think also remember that everybody goes through the same journey. So like, I think, yes, there can be those dogmatic carnivores, but there are also a lot of flexible, chill people who went through the same journey and realized that maybe we don't have to be 100%, or maybe we'd like to be 100%, but if we're not, it's not the end of the world,
Right.
You're still doing better than 99% of the population.
Yes, exactly.
So
like someone the other day was like, oh, I totally fell off, I ate a baked potato. I'm like, dude, okay, a baked potato, so what? Like, you didn't go and binge on ice cream or cake or candy. Like, it's not the end of the world,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're doing better than the vast majority of the world population. So
exactly.
Be proud of yourself. So Sarah, where can people find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm usually the most active. It's at carnivore.yogi. if you go on YouTube and search Carnivore Yogi, my channel will come up. And then I have a podcast called the Carnivore Yogi Podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, Google, like wherever you can find podcasts. So those are the best ways to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a blast. Thank you for coming over and sharing your message with my audience. Thank you all for staying with us and listening to this conversation. If you like this kind of content, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.